the President of the United States came to speak to Republicans at lunch. We talked about a lot of issues, including immigration reform and the like. Subsequent to that meeting, we were informed by email that the President has made a major announcement with regard to the deployment of National Guard along the border.
We need to stay one step ahead, and by having the military, with their experience in Iraq and Afghanistan, with the reconnaissance, the intelligence, the surveillance, having that group, that manpower on our border to help figure out how we stay 2 steps ahead of the drug traffickers is going to be absolutely imperative.
All right, and here's a little bit about what we know of what the administration is going to propose. This comes from a senior administration official. They say, quote, President Obama will request $500 million in supplemental funds for enhanced border protection and law enforcement activities. The president will also deploy up to an additional requirements-based 1,200 National Guard troops to the border. This is very interesting because, you know, in his big meeting with the GOP senators today, he talked about the fact that, at least by John McCain's account, that he wasn't in to bringing Guard troops down to the border. And then the announcement came shortly after. All right, let's bring in our panel to talk about it. Steve Hayes, senior writer for the Weekly Standard. Juan Williams, news analyst for National Public Radio, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Welcome, gentlemen. Steve, I'll start with you. Does that McCain situation seem strange to you?
Yeah, it's very strange. I mean, the first thing I think that needs to be said about this from a sort of big picture perspective is that in this years-long debate about border security first versus comprehensive immigration, we now at least have something of a winner, border security first. The president has always said we need comprehensive immigration. He has now at least said, okay, I recognize that those of you who have been making the argument that we need border security first have a valid argument. But what's weird about this is the mechanics of this meeting, where you have the president being challenged on this question of sending National Guard troops down to the border by John Kyle, John McCain, Senator Cornyn, and others. And the president, in effect, not really answering their arguments or answering their challenges. And then, shortly after the meeting, you have a press release that's emailed out from Representative Gabby Giffords, who represents, I think, Arizona's 8th district, a Democrat from Arizona, saying, in effect, the White House has agreed to send 1,200 troops, $500 million, and this is going to be announced later in the day, in a sense, getting ahead of the White House. What's so strange, and I think what has Republicans on the Hill really angry at this point, is that the president never said that this was a White House plan. He never took the opportunity of having a face-to-face meeting with Republicans, something that was intended to generate goodwill with Republicans and bipartisanship. He never once mentioned that the White House was going to be doing this.
And we know that during the meeting there was some pushback also from Senator Kyle and McCain, both from Arizona, about the fact that Arizona's law has been so heavily criticized by some within the administration who apparently had not read the law. We're now getting word that a team of Justice Department attorneys have looked at the law and are recommending that the administration actually challenge it in federal court. Juan, what do you make of that?
Well, again, this is all part of the idea that immigration is a huge issue. It's sort of been subterranean for so long. Nobody wanted to touch it, Republican or Democrat. Now it's out in the open. I think there is tremendous political energy coming from Republicans on it, especially given what's happened in Arizona and public support for the Arizona law. But what has happened first, let me just, in commenting on what Steve had to say, I think that the president didn't want to get in front of his own announcement, which was scheduled for next Tuesday after the Memorial Day break. And the second thing to say is that this argument that took place with the senators and President Obama was literally about boots on the ground. And if you'll note from the list that you displayed, Shannon, what this money is going to do is provide additional administrative support, additional technology, in fact, technology of the kind that we've seen in Iraq and Afghanistan used to detect movement of terrorists, and in large part be directed at supporting existing efforts. The administration and Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano, former governor of Arizona, holding to the idea that the border is more secure now than it's ever been, but they want to make an effort here to be very concrete that they are supporting this. And I would imagine that the quid pro quo will be, let's fix a broken system, part of which will be undoing the Arizona laws. You just spoke about the challenge that will come from the Justice Department, and asking Republicans to support that then in exchange for the fact that the president has toughened border security.
And just a note real quick, that's at the lowest levels right now as we understand it within the Justice Department. Still a number of channels to go through before we get to some kind of lawsuit. But you mentioned the administrative side of this, and what we're hearing from Senator Kyle too is, you know, in commenting on these 1,200 possible troops to go down, his understanding is these may be desk jobs, Charles.
That's why I think the view that this announcement by the White House of $500 million and 1,200 National Guard is a serious effort, a serious way to show seriousness about this. Is total nonsense. This is a PR stunt. It's Lucy and the football all over again. Remember, it was George Bush a few years ago who all of a sudden there was this concern. The border states were up in arms over immigration. So he sends, I think it was a couple of 1,000 National Guard. Well, they come and they go, and the problem remains, and the traffickers remain, the drug people remain, illegal immigrants remain. What we're going to have here, as you said, from Kyle, they probably aren't even going to be on the border. They might even be just in desk jobs. This is nothing but a stunt on the part of the administration to try to show that it's interested in sealing the border in order that we'll get a deal on comprehensive, which really is a deal for amnesty. And it's ridiculous. McCain had an argument with Obama in the meeting. It was described as rather testy. Interestingly, McCain, who was on the Obama side of the argument 3 years ago, is now, because of a challenge in his own state, on the correct side today, in which he said to the president, close the damn border. He used the word, I think he used dang instead, because he's a military man. So, and the president, of course, objected. The only answer here, and it is a simple answer, I say it again and again because there is no objection that makes sense. Complete the fence. Don't send the guard down. They're going to go, they're going to come back, won't make any difference. A fence remains. A fence works. It works around San Diego. And that's why you've got all this increase in immigration in Arizona, because it is channeling all those who can't enter on the San Diego side into Arizona. I mean, this is an obvious issue. The Democrats are unbelievably stubborn on this. If you want to use stimulus money, you don't send 1,000 guard. You send 20,000 unemployed, and you build a fence quickly. And once that's done, let's have an argument and a debate about legalization and all the other steps.
All right. Very quickly, I want to get your reaction to the fact that we heard from this meeting as well that the president was you mentioned testy, Charles, but very defensive at points, and that Pat Roberts from Kansas said that he repeatedly wrote down on his pad, thin skin, thin skin, thin skin. And he said whenever somebody tried to challenge the president, he said, I'm getting a ton of pressure from the left. That's what I'm doing, why I'm doing a lot of what I'm doing. Steve, your reaction?
Well, I think that's the president actually just being honest, telling everybody what we all know. We've seen him be testy in public before. We've seen him be testy with reporters. Back on the campaign when he snapped, when he was asked a question when he was at a waffle shop, and he said, I just want to eat my waffle. We've seen him be testy in political situations. We've seen him be testy at the get-together with Republicans in Baltimore. I think the president is thin-skinned. I think he does this, and I think it's one of the reasons that it's better that these things happen behind closed doors from the perspective of the president.
I was amazed that he had the meeting with the Republicans, that they gave him the meeting, but then he gets in there and they were beating him up about not being sufficiently bipartisan on financial reform. And it just strikes me that, wait a minute, Republicans have taken a political stance of obstructing everything this guy tries to do, and then they're going to beat him up for not being sufficiently bipartisan. How hypocritical.
Unfair.
Senator Roberts also added, after saying the president was thin-skinned, that he should take a Valium before he meets with Republicans. I'd be happy to write the prescription, so all they have to do is to call my office. I'll do it for all of them.
In order to just bring them together, you'll do it for the country?
I do it, yeah, for my, absolutely, as a loyal citizen, a retired doctor.
We'll pass along. We'll make sure the White House gets the offer. Thanks, Charles. There's a lot more on it.